Okay, let's see, do we have audio? Fantastic, we do. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're right on time, so we'll see how well we keep that time as we go. Thanks for coming to day 2 of the Wi-Fi breakout sessions. We have, I think, some fantastic conversations to have with all of you. 3 actual presentation sessions lined up, a range of Wi-Fi topics. We'll have a start-off session myself with Kajsa and TT, talking about a range of open source challenges and solution opportunities. And we'll have then Drew leading another session and then followed by Jack. So tremendous bit of time set together, and look forward to the conversations that we have. So with that, welcome. So with that, we'll get going. The first session is entitled The Power and Challenges of Open Source Community Development. And what are those challenges and how do we find solutions together? I'd like to invite our panel presenters up on stage. I'll introduce Kajsa. Arvidsson is industry veteran, many successful large telco experiences in her career. Currently CCO of Iopsys. Iopsys is a company that's developing a fantastic range of embedded solutions in managed gateways, IoT solutions, mesh access points, repeaters. So fantastic portfolio of Wi-Fi enabled solutions for a variety of applications and residential focus as well. So Kajsa, welcome you to come up as well. TT Hsu. So TT is Vice President EdgeCore Networks, and EdgeCore longtime partner for open source, open disaggregated solutions in the industry, longtime friend to TIP OpenWiFi. And so TT will be joining us here on stage as well. And EdgeCore is a wholly owned subsidiary of Acton. So we'll start off with UTT as our first presenter, and I'll hand the power of the machine.
Thank you.
Thank you, TT.
Thank you, Chris. So first, as Chris has mentioned, EdgeCore is a subsidiary of the Atom Group. Then Atom is a major ODM supplier in Taiwan, focused on open networking solution. Okay. So this slide shows the solution covered by EdgeCore. EdgeCore is our branding inside Atom. So our group is focused on the MSP and the enterprise solution. So basically, we are a little bit different than the other group inside EdgeCore. We focus pretty much end-to-end solution. So this is our team. So next, I will show our participant in the Open Wi-Fi. We joined Open Wi-Fi at a very early stage. So it's like, I think it's around like Q1 2020. So since then, we start to contribute in AP to the Open Wi-Fi community, also support the first Open Wi-Fi software development and the testing. So we started with supplying Wi-Fi AP, then followed by Wi-Fi 6 AP. So from the beginning, after working with the Open Wi-Fi community for some time, we feel like in order to accelerate the adoption of the community, we need to create, at that time we call it TIP skill AP, which means we preloaded the TIP software, so the partner, when they receive the AP, it's easier for them to start their development or testing. Then we also, in early 2021, we supplied the Wi-Fi 6 platform to the Open Wi-Fi. At that time, we have some discussion with Chris and other people inside Open Wi-Fi community. We think it will be good also to have a pure switch under the same management architecture. We first provided our 1 gigabit pure switch as some kind of prototyping effort, but this until a few months ago, there's a group called Open PoE formed to focus on this development. And in the middle of 2021, we supplied the 2.5 gig pure switch to the Open Wi-Fi community. Because at that time, based on the Wi-Fi 6 AP, most of the Wi-Fi 6 AP require 2.5 gig interface and also need more power budget to power on the AP. So for our first 2.5 gig PoE switch, this one can support up to 60 watt per port. In 2022, after about 2 years of developing the OpenWiFi, and we feel like it's important to provide an end-to-end ready solution for our customer. So originally, HCO has a cloud control called EC Cloud, but it's managed HCO devices through proprietary protocol. At that time, our cloud managed our PoE switch AP and also our CTK as a device. Then we feel like we also need to be able to manage open Wi-Fi supported devices. So at that time, we started to look into to integrate cloud SDK into our cloud infra. We started with integrating cloud SDK 2.0 at that time. Then at the few code development, we later decided to rename the code EC Open in order to separate from our original EC Cloud. So right now, we totally separate our solution and the open Wi-Fi-based solution. So, and our EC Open Cloud is also open to manage other vendors' hardware if they are running open Wi-Fi software. Then in the middle of this year, there's a new group, Open PoE subgroup formed. Then we feel like this is very in line with our target of providing an end-to-end solution. So we actively participate in this group, and we are in discussion of the partner to supply hardware for initial development. Then right now we are in the process of submitting our tri-band AP. We start with outdoor AP, so it will be sent to TIP either this week or next week. We target to make it into production in Q2 next year. Then after reviewing this end-to-end solution, we feel like there's also a last mile solution required for deploying the platform solution. We have been working with Meta Connectivity for about 2 years on a project called Telegram. Telegram is a technology focused on 60 gigahertz band. It can provide very high-speed wireless speed bandwidth. Then we have built 3 products so far. The first one we call DNO. We follow Meta Connectivity terminology. It's like a base station. And at that one, we took the reference design from Meta Connectivity, make it into a commercial product. For that, we designed 2 client products, which is called CNO. One is for short distance, so it can operate between DN and the CN about 100 meters at the up to the maximum speed about like I think it's 2.8 gig bidirectional in terms of wireless speed. Then later we also feel like there's a need for a longer distance product, so we develop a long range CN. Then it can operate between the DN and the CN long range about 500 meters. If we use the long range CN as a point-to-point device, it can support up to 2.8 gig. I think it's 1.8 bidirectional, up to 1 kilometer. Then we think this is because our main customer for this product is a WSP. They use this for last mile. We think an open Wi-Fi is also a need for a last mile wireless solution. So we have, after discussion with the committee, we'd like to contribute this into the community, make it also be manageable from the same cloud SDK. So we are starting working on this. So from the open Wi-Fi tandem HCO, we can see we are taking an end-to-end ready solution for our end customer. We want to make this into a platform, not just a proprietary solution. So we are providing cloud and Wi-Fi AP, PoE switch, and the last mile wireless solution. We hope this can provide a foundation for deploying the solution in an open architecture. So this is what it will look like after all these 3 be managed by the same cloud SDK. So we start with the Wi-Fi AP. Now we are working on PoE switch together. And I think in the near future, we can also include our Telegram solution under essential management. So as you have listened to Chris and John's talk yesterday, I think you can appreciate the engineering effort and commitment put into creating the current open Wi-Fi solution. From the working with this team, and I feel like this is a different open source approach, because this one, even is based on open.id, is under very high quality control. Then it increased our customer confidence in adopting this solution. So, so we think to continue this success, it will need the broad support from the community. At HCO, we started doing something. So this is what we have doing. So from our working experience with our partner, basically we have working with two types of customers. One is a software development company, one is MSP, and the other different type of operator. For software company, including HCO itself, ourselves, we think the benefit both from the open Wi-Fi is help us not to repeat the basic function, everything has been working. We can just add on our special need, or I think this also happened to other software partners we are working with. So actually, it helps us to create product faster to market. For SP, I think the first major benefit is that there's no manual logging. They can use any partner's cloud controller, any partner's AP hardware, run the same open Wi-Fi NAS, and create their own solution. On top of that, because of the open API scheme, they can also build their own application and accumulate their own IP on top of this. To achieve this goal, from our years' experience of working in the open networking, we think in addition to solution, you also need support and service. So HCO pretty much focus on the support and service. So we are the first to create a TIP SKU AP. Around that, for each HCO TIP SKU AP, we provide complete certification, like FCC in Japan, Canada, and the other country. Then we also promote this through HCO brand. So we work with our distributor, so they will stock our TIP SKU AP as a standard stock, so our partner can easily purchase HCO TIP SKU AP. Then we also provide additional services needed. For example, we've been working with some of the partners, probably they are new to this concept, so our team will help them in terms of software porting or integrate their own solution. And we have been working with a few partners. One is pretty much focused on AI in India, and the one is for the security in Canada. I think with the open scheme, they'll be able to integrate a solution through our team's cooperation. I would say very quickly, about like 3 months. Before this, almost impossible with your proprietary scheme. So again, we also supply, because we are marketing through our own channel, so you have our logistics and IMS support. So I think to continue to maintain or to this success, we need support from all companies. So HCO is doing is like, first, we continue to promote HCO Open Wi-Fi solution based on the Open Wi-Fi architecture. We have been working with Open Wi-Fi team for the webinar presentation and some of you try. We are also building some promotion scene. For example, recently we have finished a set of tutor book. Based on experience working with our partner, we build this kind of step-by-step scene. We put in our website. At the same time, we also publish it as a tutor book. So continue, we think there's a need to create kind of like a more like a consistent training program for everyone. So this solution can be adopted more like quickly. For now, we are open our open cloud for all the partners for free trial, not just for HCO hardware, also include any partner's hardware running open Wi-Fi software. Then at the same time, we also starting to form a support team, basically based on our experience with working with our partner. So we put it into a database. Continue want this to become like a complete training program. For this, I would like to HCO would like to request tips help so make it become the official training program. We are willing to contribute our training material. Thank you.
Thank you, Titi.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome Kajsa up, our next speaker.
So thank you for having us. We now move from public Wi-Fi into residential Wi-Fi. And I think for anyone who just came up from the CXO roundtable, we know how important this part of the industry is, and how Wi-Fi and the connected home is something that we need for our everyday life. So Iopsys, who are we? We are a Swedish software company. We've been active for quite long, but we spun out as an independent company in 2018. And we have operations in 6 countries with around 80 full-time employees. So we are big enough to handle both Tier 1 operators as our customers, as well as Tier 1 OEMs of gateways, at the same time as we continue to be fast and agile, because we do want not to be too big. So what do? Well, we combine OpenVRT, open source software, with telecom standards and requirements into an open source operative system. And this to overlay any hardware platform to make service provider and gateway manufacturers independent of what happens underneath. And this, of course, to speed up the innovation for the residential home. There has been a lot of talk about disaggregation these days, right? But the industry for home Wi-Fi has actually not reached the stage of talking about this. It's still very proprietary, even though it's much needed to separate the hardware from the software here. And the demand from homes, from consumers, to have a faster launch of services, to have a faster launch of corrections when something is wrong, is tremendous. So service providers, like we were on stage with BT 2 weeks ago, they really talk about how they could reduce the 9 months of a new services down to 2 weeks. Because by owning their software and not having to care about what comes under, and to be able to order hardware instead of a full product, they can be quick in responding to market demand. Things like security applications, for example, which is a key thing for an operator to enable for their subscribers. We see that when operators own their software, the market for what hardware to buy opens up tremendously, which is a win-win for everyone. And requirements go down from maybe 10 to 15,000 to a handful, which means that also response to an RFQ and delivery on an order can be much faster. Upgrade in the field goes down, multiple times, because you have one software layer to address. And also the support becomes much cheaper, because the ones who sit on customer care have one software to take care of. Then you have different services. You have services that are segmented on your household rather than on what gateway you have bought. Which, of course, I don't want to dwell into it, but anyone who has been in the ACS industry knows that the roll rates are extremely expensive and extensive today. And just taking them down a few percentage would save you a lot of OpEx cost. And then to both the sustainability part of the home Wi-Fi, in terms of actually not replacing hardware from a shipping point of view, from a using products point of view, but also for the convenience of the household, because we have accessed so many things to our gateways. We don't want to replace them, but we want new services. We buy new things, IoT things, that we want to connect to our gateway. Right now, we get a new gateway for our locker, we get a new gateway for our car, etc., and it becomes a mess. And the best ones to address these are really service providers, if they have the tools and means to host this in the gateway in a good way. So what I already told you, but IOVRT is our key product, which is a commercial open source software. And if we look into what it looks like, it's built on IOVRT for our base services. We do applications which you can, for example, voice. In some markets want voice over DECT, so we can build a specific stack for that. You want certain web UIs and different types of device management. We support Linux containers. We are very keen on following the standards for TR-369, TR-181 to make sure to keep up with the telecom requirements and to have the speed in the industry and not make things more complex than they have to be. We think what our customers tell us today is that use the standards that are there and make us able to move on existing agreements rather than inventing a lot of new things and spend time on yet proprietary interfaces, but keep interfaces open. And back to your question on open source. We are very dedicated to OpenVRT. We were there from the start. We follow any new release and make sure that it's enabled. We don't compromise the code. We see some activities where actually the open source code is changed to fit with proprietary solution. We don't believe in that. We think the best way to address the market and make it smooth is to leave the open source code untouched. We upstream everything we do, and we, as said, work with Broadband World Forum and Wi-Fi Alliance to make sure to meet telecom requirements. I think I leave it with that, because I know you have a lot of questions for us.
Hopefully the whole room has a lot of questions for the panel. Thank you, Kajsa. I'll sort of start us off maybe quickly, and just I'll start back maybe with you, TT. I think you and EdgeCore team have been with OpenWiFi from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So you've had probably the most of any partner the opportunity to hear from. Thank you. To hear from the community, OpenWiFi users, consumers, integrators, beyond the training program, which I love, fantastic idea. What is the #1 priority in your mind for OpenWiFi in 2023?
I think for Wi-Fi, I think for 2020, our goal is to win a major operator industry on Open Wi-Fi.
Major operator.
Yeah, I think that will kind of like bring competence to the community. Right now, we have some success with the software vendor and also with the MSP, but for the operators, they're in the testing stage.
Right. Thanks, TT. Kajsa, so totally different end of the spectrum, right? So with all of the solution that TT presented, including last mile access, which, and for folks who attend the PG calls regularly, just recently was announced an open source on Telegraph last mile as part of OpenWiFi. It's fantastic. After that last mile, we get to the home.
Yeah.
And so with the amount of time in industry that Iopsys has the experience in the home, a little bit of the same question to you. What's that number one Wi-Fi topic in 2023? Apparently, it's transmission power control. What is that number one Wi-Fi topic for your users, your service providers, your customers in 2023?
So I think I subscribe to the same view as we saw Cable Labs present some minutes ago. This is to have stable coverage in the whole home, which means that we need standardized Wi-Fi, standardized APIs, and standardized analytics, or analytics over standards, I should say.
Right.
Because the home is still way too hard to manage, and people are not able to get the experience they could with the technology we have. I mean, as the industry have.
Right. Yeah.
So I think Wi-Fi priority number one is full coverage and stable Wi-Fi.
Full coverage, stable coverage, quality of experience. Yeah. Conscious of time, would like to offer the room opportunity to ask our panel any questions. EdgeCore and Iopsys here, ready to take your interesting questions, if there are any in the room. We do have some. Do we have them? Oh.
Yeah, I was curious about your view on mesh, both in the enterprise as well as home. How's it panning out today? How's it going to pan out with Wi-Fi 6E, the 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi coming up? Any changes there?
Go ahead.
I think from our perspective, we support Easy Mesh, and I think it moves slower than we expected. But anyone who tried a mesh system knows that it may be more like a tree than a mesh. So coming from the macro networks, I'm looking forward to have more of a self-optimizing network in my home.
Any thoughts on mesh from the enterprise, TT?
We have, before we join OpenWiFi, we have our own proprietary mesh. Right now, we use the open mesh. But I think in the enterprise deployment, we don't see that's the important in the area. So, yeah.
Right. Maybe another question over to you, Kajsa. So from Iopsys' perspective, so many years experience in open source, and really doing open source the way it's intended to be done. How do you see then from OpenWiFi, where OpenWiFi depends on that ongoing upstream staging with OpenWRT, how do you see the OpenWiFi relationship to the work that you're doing at Iopsys?
So I think, a big common thing we have is that we are very true to OpenWRT, right? And for our customers so far asked us to use data model TR181, and now I lost the word for it.
Central.
Central, thank you. Freudian slip. It's built by persons who are very knowledgeable about OpenWRT. And for all we see, for us to change 181 when there is a customer request to use Central is a very easy task. So for us, it's a business decision. I don't know if that answers your question, but technically it's easy.
I think it's part of that journey to having part of that higher quality Wi-Fi experience is being able to build from a consistently solid base where we understand the operating system, the kernel, the drivers, and we're able to bring in the right tools that are fit for function, fit for business case, whether it's residential or enterprise, and we may have the option to move management plane, be able to move telemetry plane, but we can standardize on how that looks and feels from the operator's business use of the technology. And I think that's maybe the most important part of all this.
It's very optimized for purpose, so with modern perspective. So
Yeah, indeed. We have another
You were-
question.
Yeah, you were asking about the standardization or telling about standardization. What do you see the path to create the standardization?
A path for standardizing.
Whatever you want to standardize. You talked about APIs, and then there's also all kinds of other standards. But, I mean, what other path that you would like to use to standardize?
So I think that to keep to containers, for example, for applications, as well as using USP for getting access by multiple users into the client, is one of the key things to really drive services into the residential business, to not invent, not to have too much native applications, for example, or have something that needs a totally different architecture to handle. The key components are there, and it's more to make use of them as we see it.
There's two elements to, I think that were always true in my experience from the Tier 1 CSP universe. Two most expensive costs to the business were truck rolls and firmware upgrades. Both of them were painful for a variety of reasons, right? But they both cost the business. And the application that's enabled through modernized Linux kernels to have containerized applications, fit for purpose applications that can be dynamically loaded and unloaded, updated without having to restart the device, without having to deliver a firmware upgrade, that could potentially bring additional quality of experience focus into whether it's the enterprise or the residential premises. These all speak to, I think, a very bright future around Wi-Fi technology. So,
yeah, and I mean, we see our customer putting up, as ourselves also try to aggregate then different type of applications that works on their software, which means that easy then to pick in what you need to do and then set up how the testing should be performed. And I think we will see this. I mean, if we would compare to an Android world back in 2000 something early, then this is what happens, but much later now for the gateway or for the residential gateways. And then is the question just, are you self-testing or are you getting certified?
that's right.
And I think that the self-testing to a large extent is has a lot of benefits in terms of someone taking responsibility for somebody else's services, but open it up.
Absolutely. Well, one last quick question. Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things that the non-open Wi-Fi hardware providers are always striving to outdo each other is in the antenna technology and the connectivity, especially in dense residential or commercial. What's your sort of perspective on how competitive the open Wi-Fi hardware is going to be in that respect, and how much of that is protected by patents? Do you think it's going to be highly competitive for the against the non-open as related to that?
In terms of today's open Wi-Fi in the enterprise space?
Or in the multifamily dense housing?
Yeah. So I think it's hard to answer with specifics. I think that the ODM partners through the community would have residential platforms that would be certainly fit for those particular premises functions. That would include extenders and gateways with the proper type of physical ports and radio configurations therein. So I think that the enterprise platforms that exist today in open Wi-Fi are very much fit for function, ceiling, wall plate, those types of approaches. And so I think some of the antenna design and the related hardware engineering for residential would probably look quite different.
Yes, I think we pretty much focus on the standard hardware. Then with certainly the antenna quality and the design is also a major part. So we are very also focused on the area in our team.
But that's almost a great segue to our next set of guests. And so we'll hand over now. And thank you so much, Kajsa and TT. Thank you, everyone, for your questions.